Welcome to the Man 360 podcast.
Welcome to the Man 360 podcast. I'm your host, Brian. Thank you for listening today. We really appreciate all the support, people that connect with us. We've talked to a lot of people that say, hey, we love the TV program. We love what it stands for. We love being able to hear stories and testimonies and the fun you guys do, all the different things you do around the world. We have our travel segment, we do some other things, but specifically for our podcast, we wanted to do some podcasts now that are just so important for us to think through as Christian men and be able to apply these things to our life. So before I get into the podcast though, I want to let you know you can always connect with us, as you know, on man360.tv. We have a lot of great resources there. We have an additional content page. We have some other things that pertain to the TV program, but also thinking of Man 360 more as a general ministry to men as well. And obviously this podcast is a part of that. If you'd like to connect with us and have a little more personal connection, you can go to Instagram, you can go to Facebook, you can go to our YouTube page if you want to watch any past seasons. And if you just type in Man 360 TV and just look for our logo, just look for our little icon up there and click on that and give us a follow. And then we'll let you know when we have new content coming out. So today, let's get into the podcast. I wanted to talk today about something that is pretty much, I think every single person deals with it, whether you are a Christian, whether you're what I call a pre-believer or somebody who doesn't believe in Jesus yet. It's the illusion of control. And, in life, I think it's very interesting how we try to do things to provide and give us control in life. Try to do things that maybe we think we have control, but we really don't. And I wanted to read a story, just a real quick story today that I found on Instagram that was about the McDonald's Monopoly game. And how much of a big lie essentially it was a long time ago. And I remember this game. I remember the McDonald's Monopoly game when I used to eat McDonald's more when I was a kid and I didn't care about my weight or anything else. But when I read this story, it was so scary because I was thinking, wow, it was such a perfect illustration of there actually being and really thinking about the false sense of control and the illusion of control that we live in. So here's the story here. So for 12 years, the McDonald's Monopoly game was one big lie. A man stole the winning tickets, handpicked fake winners, and scammed McDonald's out of $24 million until the FBI took him down. So here's how he pulled it off and how he got caught. So McDonald's introduced the Monopoly game in 1987 as a genuine, so I was 15 years old. So this would have been in the prime time. And $24 million, when I was 15, so that was, 37 years ago? That was some money. So the game in 1987 as a genius marketing stunt. So this is what they did. So you would peel, collect, and win. Customers could win cash, cars, vacations, and even a $1 million grand prize by collecting game pieces attached to food packaging. So I remember I think it was Boardwalk, and there was another one in there that were the two blue ones, the two blue tags from Monopoly. Those are always the ones that people are getting. You'd tear those things, you think, oh, I'm going to get it. So people thought it was pure luck. In reality, one man controlled the entire thing. Meet Jerome Jacobson, aka Uncle Jerry. He was the head of security at the company in charge of printing the game pieces. That meant he had direct access to the rare, high valuable ones. Instead, he stole them and handpicked fake winners, taking a cut of every prize. But here's where it gets interesting. Jacobson smuggled the winning game pieces out of the printing facility and handed them off to winners, quote unquote, that he selected. For 12 years, not a single legitimate player won a major McDonald's prize. And McDonald's had no clue. So they have no clue what was going on. Jacobson and his network of friends, family, and other criminals would go on to steal $24 million in prizes until the FBI got an anonymous tip. So McDonald's Monopoly is rigged. The winners are all connected. That's what the anonymous tip said. So they launched Operation Final Answer, an undercover sting to catch the fraudsters. FBI agents went undercover as a TV crew pretending to film McDonald's winners for a commercial. And here's where it gets even more interesting. So they interviewed the scammers. They started catching inconsistencies in their stories. So one by one, the whole scheme fell apart. So by August 2001, the FBI arrested 53 people, and including Uncle Jerry. McDonald's was forced to admit the game had been rigged for years. But what happened to Uncle Jerry? Well, McDonald's gave away $25 million in real prizes to fix the reputation. Jacobson got 37 months in prison. Most fake winners had to pay back their money. McDonald's completely changed how they run their promotions to prevent this from ever happening again. But for 12 years, Uncle Jerry had the ultimate cheat code. So for all those years of buying, I mean, I don't know how many Big Macs I bought. I don't know how many, and if you went from a regular, if you're old enough, if you went from like a regular size fry to like a super size your fry and you did the largest size, you'd get two pieces on there. And I remember I'd win like, a cherry pie that you'd bite into and it'd burn your mouth. We all remember the cherry pies from, or apple. I think cherry pie was my favorite from McDonald's. But like you'd win ice cream cones, you'd win like a free Big Mac or whatever, but you weren't ever going to win any of the big major prizes, any of the cars, any of the things that were out there. So, and it's really interesting because I thought about that and I was like, the just this illusion of control. So we think because we have five senses that we know how we can control our lives. So how about our health? What about athletes that are perfectly healthy and just drop dead? I just read, I think it was a couple months ago, about a high school athlete, perfectly healthy. I think Bronny James, LeBron James' son, was another one that had some issues with his heart, and they didn't find out about it until he actually had an episode or something, and then they were like, oh, and you think this illustration of control, these people that are super duper major healthy, and then they go through and they have some type of disease or something genetic or congenital in their body, and then they find out they have an issue. And even with us, we try to eat right. Yolanda and I are trying to eat better. We're trying to do, a little more exercise and a little more getting out and being able to do those things. But it's like those are all just pieces and parts of us trying to do things that we think are going to help bring us health in our body. And I'm not talking bad about any of those things. I think we need to be healthy. I think we need to eat well and do those things. But if we think that we're only going to do those things, there's also other physiological things that go on in our body where we have to trust God that He's being able to help, touch us and be able to bring health to our body. So how about our money? Everything you have could be gone tomorrow. Whether that's through nefariousness with the government and other nonsense things that we've seen. It could be that someone can get into your bank account and scam you and steal money. We had another friend, I won't tell you who it is specifically from the network. Their mom had got involved in a money scheme and lost, I think it was like $12,000. And it was like, just because they got a phone call, this person said, hey, I need your bank account. This mom was older, from one of our employees. Their mom was older, gave him the bank account number and stole, I think it was like $12,000. So even the illusion of a bank, we see FDIC, this is guaranteed to not, if somebody steals this money or takes this money, we're guaranteed up to this amount of money. But even those things can be just really illusions. So Proverbs 3:5-6 says, trust the Lord with all your heart, lean not on your own understanding, and in all your ways acknowledge Him, and He will direct your path. And I read this from an online article about about trusting God. Allowing God to be your guide and trusting Him with control of your life begins with a commitment to trust. God cannot lead you where you will not follow. And again, back to this verse, this Proverbs verse, it says, trust the Lord with all your heart and lean not on your own understanding. So there's two operative words in there. That there's some of it is what's God's responsibility and then what's our responsibility. So many times in Christendom, and just that's a religious word if you don't know a lot of religious words. I grew up in church, so I know a lot of religious words. Is that there's something to be said about the power of the free will of us as humans. So one of the greatest gifts that we can give God is our free will. And really, that's really when we ask Jesus into our heart, we say, God, I don't know all these things. You know what I need. And so I'm trusting you with the things in my heart. So the two words in that sentence, in that verse, is trust the Lord with all your heart. So trust is an option for you to be able to trust that. So you've got to be able to say, either you're going to trust in the illusion of controlling your life. You're going to say, you know what, God, I don't need you. You're good. I appreciate. Or maybe you say this. Maybe you're like, I trust God for my salvation, and I know I'm going to heaven, and I know the power of trusting in Jesus as my Savior, and I know I'm going to go to heaven someday. But everything else on this earth, I'm just going to trust myself. I'm going to trust my own wits. I'm going to trust my own ability to know what's right and what's wrong. I'm going to trust my senses. But specifically, this verse in Proverbs says, trust the Lord with all of your heart. And then the second part of that says, and lean not on your own understanding. So part of that is important. What's important to realize is that you're not going to lean on your own understanding. So you're trusting God with your heart, trust the Lord with your heart, and then you're leaning not on your own understanding. Again, those are options too. So you can say, God, I trust you with everything. But then the leaning, I think the reason why those two words are separated in there is the trust the Lord with all your heart is the foundation of that. But then leaning not on your own understanding. It doesn't say trust the Lord with all your heart and trust not your own understanding. It says lean on your not on your own understanding. So that means that you're not going to rely. Leaning is relying, right? So if I'm leaning against a wall, I'm relying on that wall to stay standing so that it can help support my weight and I can relax my body against that wall. So when I'm leaning on something, I'm actually putting my trust and I'm putting my effort into trusting that that's holding me up. So what we're saying is we're leaning not on our own understanding, but trusting God. And then the second part of that verse in verse 6, in all your ways acknowledge him. And then the last part is, and he will direct your path. So sometimes we get nervous. We're like, God, why aren't you directing my path? Why aren't you telling me and showing me what I need to do? I need to trust you, God. I don't trust, and I want to trust you, and I want to give you my full support. But then I think we need to do is if we feel like we're not being directed in something, I think we need to go back to the beginning and say, God, do I really trust you with all of my heart? Do I just trust you with most of my heart? Do I lean on some of my understanding, but then I also lean on you? It's like those things can't be diluted. Even lukewarmness in the Bible is not just about our salvation. It's also about the function of our walks with God. When we say we're trusting and we're following God and our salvation and our eternity is set with him, the other things that we do in our life and that trust and that leaning not on our own understanding is not only just for us, it's also maybe for people that are watching us, people that are looking for us to be that example. And I think it's important too that we understand that when we trust God with control of our life, that we're committing and we're saying, God, I trust you and I'm committing to keeping that trust with you every day. We can say, well, I gave my heart to God and that was a long time ago, and then every day, but even in Ephesians 6, it talks about putting on the full armor of God every day. So it doesn't just say put on the full armor of God when you get saved and you're good, but every single day the devil's always testing us. The devil's always doing those things to try to get us, distract us away from what God wants in our lives. And I really believe that the devil wants to be able to promote or pump up your flesh and say, you don't need God. I mean, look at Adam and Eve. The whole point in the garden was the devil saying, God just doesn't want you to be as smart as he is. He doesn't want you to know what he knows. He doesn't want you to have the ability. And it's like he just wants you to have to trust in him. And then that temptation gave full bodied sin, with Adam and Eve. So I think this is the kind of the summation of all of this. But real change in life only comes from two things. So if you're doing something and you want to change, this only comes from these two things: being tired of the results of your life, and then changing the status quo to expect a different outcome. Again, there's two pieces in there. It's not just being tired of the results in your life. You can say, oh, I'm so tired of my results in my life. I'm so tired of my results. I'm so tired of these results of having false trust in things and having this illusion of control of my life. But then you have to change the status quo. You have to do something different to expect a different outcome. That's really the key of what we're talking about today. So I think it's important that we examine our lives and just take a step back, even with this podcast, maybe even take some time today and just step back and pray and say, God, is there anything in my life that I'm not trusting you with? Is it my finances? Is it my health? Is it my family? Is it my future? Is there something else there that I'm not allowing you to have full access to and to have full direction of in everything that I do? And then are there areas that you're unhappy with? And that can be maybe the best, litmus test for things that you need to trust and give up to God. Are there just areas in your life that you're unhappy with that you need to say, God, I'm unhappy in this area. Show me how to walk this out. Maybe you need to get in a fellowship with some other people, a good mentor or somebody that, again, I have multiple firewalls of accountability in my life, but not just in accountability, but also just the people that are pushing you and are encouraging you to be different in what you say. You're like, hey, I don't like this about my life. I want you to keep me accountable because I feel like there's a level of, and I want to say even the word happiness, because we don't want to just be moved on our emotions, but we see the results of things in our life that are not lining up with the Word of God and how important that is. And the last one really is, do you truly trust God in all areas of your life? You can say that, you can verbally say, I trust God, but then where do you spend your time and your thoughts? We're really going to give you that answer. Your trusting in God is going to be not just when you go to church. It's not just even when you have your devotion time, although that's really important. You don't just go to church and then not have a personal devotional time. But it's really in everything. Do you trust God in your future? Do you trust God in your job? Do you trust God in your health? Do you trust him with your relationship with your wife? Do you trust him with your relationship with your kids? And really the results of those things are going to be what kind of time that you spend with God to be able to share those things with you. Sometimes we say, well, I don't know if God really is trustworthy. Is he worthy of my trust? Well, if you don't spend time with him, you'll never figure that out. You'll never find out if you can truly be who God's created you to be, which is really what Man 360 is all about. So again, thank you for listening to this podcast. Again, just this illusion of control. I'm just really praying and believing that God's going to help break maybe false thinking off of you, or ideas and things that you've always held on to for so long, and recognize and realize that there's a better way to do those things than what you're doing right now. So again, you can always go to man360.tv for all the ways to watch and connect with us. You can go to Instagram, you can go to Facebook, our YouTube page, and just type in Man360 TV. And we will see you next week back here on the Man 360 podcast. Thank you.